Detail, halt!
Please remain standing while our national anthem is performed by Bonnie Surowitz.
Present, halt!
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets strangling, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order, halt!
Thank you, Bonnie. Please
Mark
remain
time.
standing
Mark.
as the colors exit.
Halt, sir! Halt! Forward! Halt!
Please be seated and thank you, Mass VFW Color Guard. A tremendous amount of work went into this effort and simply would not have happened had it not been for the steadfast, dedicated service and support by the following individuals. State Senator Bruce Tarr. Former State Rep Brad Hill. State Representative Jamie Belcedo. Major General Gary Keefe. Secretary of Veteran Services for the Commonwealth, Cheryl Poppy. Dan Magoon from Mass Fallen Heroes. Dan, I'll get you afterwards. You can just hang where you're at there, Airborne. Mr. Mike Fisher. Jenny McCullough from Senator Tarr's office. Mary Gallivan. So why are we recognizing these people? Folks, I gotta tell you, we were kind of beset on all sides by not a lot of support to this effort. These individuals here made this happen. Folks have been pointing their finger at Karen and I. It would not have happened were it not for these folks. It wouldn't have happened. The second and final individual I'd like to recognize is Ryan Pitts. Same deal, wouldn't have happened. Ryan helped us move this thing down the field. And over here on the right, if anyone's been to the State House outside, I think it's the Senate chambers, there's a couple of plaques that recognize individuals from the Commonwealth who received our nation's highest decoration, the Medal of Honor. Ryan, as everybody knows, was born in Lowell. There's nothing in the State House currently to recognize the fact that Ryan is a Medal of Honor recipient. But what we did was, if anybody knows Ryan, he's not tremendously impressed with himself. He is, however, it's paramount to him that the memory of the paratroopers that were lost on that day are remembered. That's what this seeks to do. So we would like to donate this to the State House, and we're lucky that Rep. Belcito is helping us to do just that. So again, tip of the hat to him. Last and certainly not least, I'd like to thank two individuals, one of whom wasn't able to be here because he tested positive for COVID, whose efforts delved categorically into the space of above and beyond. And I'm going to ask that Karen Tyler join me up here just for a second. And again, an individual, this says duty, honor country, and steadfast service. That basically encapsulates what this individual does. I don't know how many times I harangued her over the past 2.5 years. Even 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, still in the office helping veterans. So just outstanding. It was an honor to work alongside of you in this office. The other one being Marvin Pena. Most everybody's familiar with Marvin, but again, he did the form work had his crew do the form work for the Soldiers Memorial that's situated adjacent to the bridge. As I was discussing with a couple folks this morning, he did the fundraising for everything, and in about 5 minutes, thanks to Mass Fallen Heroes and a couple other folks, we had the money like that. So I get tip of the hat to Dan Magoon and his team. Typical paratrooper for you. Karen and I were asked numerous times throughout this process, why name this bridge, why now, why here? One individual going as far as asking, what does any of this have to do with us? Over 3,000 veterans of the War on Terror call Essex County home. Of the over 7,000 fallen in the global war on terror situated outside here by name, over 300 were from Massachusetts, as well as a high number that we have lost right here at home due to their service, invisible wounds or otherwise. Many were from right here in the surrounding cities and towns in Essex County. One of those individuals lost U.S. Army Sergeant James Ayub Jr., a medic assigned to H Company 2nd Stryker Cav Regiment in Germany, is emblematic of that loss. I know right now he's on Fiddler's Green, as the cavalry believes, with Major General Patton, our neighbor from up the street here. He is in good company. So why now? 21 years of sustained war, America's longest war since the terror attacks of September 11th, which claimed the lives of 2,900 Americans. I would ask at this time those who served post 9/11 in the United States military to stand and be recognized, please. So what is behind this particular effort? Again, to the why now, why here, as I've been asked. Well, as my good friend Mike Rodriguez, U.S. Army Special Forces veteran and CEO of the Global War on Terrorism Memorial Foundation, which right now is in the final stages of erecting the National Memorial in the Capitol, defines his and the organization's vision and mission as to honor, salute all who served in this conflict, service members and their families, to heal, provide a focal point for healing and reflection on a complex multi-generational conflict, to empower, engage and educate civilian and military communities to build mutual understanding, to unite, to foster and sustain the sense of patriotism that brought all Americans together in the wake of 9/11, and catalyze support for those continuing to serve. And we seek to do the same here. This memorial is for this community, this county, this great state of Massachusetts, which was the focal point of pivotal battles in the forging of our great nation, and home to an unbroken line of service in the profession of arms by its citizenry. This memorial is for those of us who served in the post-9/11 U.S. military, the echo of our service lingering now and forever with our fallen, often from different states. As Jack Durrance stated in The Four Feathers, you may be lost, but you are not forgotten. For those of us who have traveled far to fight in foreign lands, note that the soldier's greatest comfort is to have his friends close at hand. In the heat of battle, it ceases to be an idea for which we fight, or a flag. Rather, we fight for the man on our left, and we fight for the man on our right. And when armies are scattered and the empires fall away, all that remains is the memory of those precious moments that we spent side by side. This memorial is for the families of those who served, most importantly to those who have lost a loved one, whether overseas or here at home. Sergeant First Class Steve Renfro, when remembered by a battalion that was comprised of 775 paratroopers on separate occasions, on no less than 100, have I heard him remembered as he was the best of us. Running on Fire Break 6 at Fort Bragg with Sergeant Renfro, he would often stop people running past us and would tell them to stop mean mugging and to smile. Bringing in Blackhawks on Latham LZ as a young 21-year-old lieutenant, being pretty nervous. And I would turn to Steve and say, you know, maybe you should just do this. And he would turn to me and say, no, you got this. The poet Aeschylus, famously quoted by Robert Kennedy, wrote, even in our sleep, pain that cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart, until in our own despair, against our will, comes wisdom to us through the awful grace of God. Being beset on all sides, feeling Sergeant Renfro behind me saying, no different than he did at Fort Bragg all those years ago, almost 20 years ago now, you've got this. And that is the primary reason to propel me through this process. I would ask Becky Renfro to accept these. At this time, I'm going to introduce Ryan Pitts for some remarks. While Ryan and I met 8 years ago, I'd heard the name of Ryan, not by name, in 2009. I didn't know who he was, but my friend Staff Sergeant Gallagher had phoned to inform me that Tim Brumley had been wounded in Afghanistan and his life had been saved by the quick action of one of his fellow paratroopers. Fast forward to West Point. I don't know how many years ago it was. I was visiting my friend Sergeant Major Gooden, who was assigned up there at the time. Ryan happened to be speaking at the Modern Warfare Institute. Colonel Oslin, his battalion commander, I think was running it at the time. And come to find out that that paratrooper that had saved Tim's life was Ryan. Selfless individual, in and out of uniform. You will not find a more selfless individual than that man standing to my left, to your right. Upon inscribing, I think, most of what he inscribes when asked to do so, normally Ryan writes, service to others is the greatest honor that we can do. It's an honor for me to present at this time to you all, Staff Sergeant Retired Ryan Pitts.
Rich, you don't need to buy my love to get me down here. Always love talking about veterans and their families. You know, this is actually one of the harder events that I've had to think about what I wanted to say, right? Because I've been thinking about that. The war really has only been over for about a year now, since the calamity that ensued when we closed down Afghanistan, and trying to think about what were the words that would encapsulate 20 years of combat service for our armed forces. And I actually think that last battle for me indicates a lot about what it means to wear the uniform. You know, people will ask me, I was just asked this morning, I get asked all the time, Ryan, what did you do to earn the Medal of Honor? And the most truthful thing that I've ever been able to say has been, I just tried to keep up with the men around me. They're great people. On that day, we were just 50 Americans, less than 50 Americans, attacked and surrounded by 150 or more enemy fighters. And I saw valor everywhere that day. I saw men do incredible things for the people that we loved. That's why we did it. You know, our country was why we served. We love our country. 9/11 may have brought us there. May have been a million different reasons that brought us together. But the reason we fought was for the man to our left and to our right. And like I said, I saw incredible things. When we were hit pretty severely at the observation post, we had 9 soldiers starting off right off the bat. We had almost 5 wounded immediately, 2 killed. One of our soldiers, Jonathan Ayers, was man in a machine gun nest facing to the east. And as he's returning fire on the enemy, he took a round right to his helmet, knocked him down. Didn't go through, but knocked him down. I'm sure it rung his bell. Jonathan, knowing the severity of the situation, got right back up on that gun and continued to fire it. Which, you know, in the end, I was not surprised that he did it, but you get so many different personality types that come together in the military. Anybody that's worn the uniform knows that it's the service is full of characters. And Ayers was funny because, you know, we really draw straws to see who's going to pull guard because we have to pull like 4-hour guard duty at night or whatever. And talking to Ayers, while he was a wonderful person, was also like talking to somebody read instructions on how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Somewhat of a dry topic. But this kid, 26 years old, took a round of the helmet and got back on and manned that machine gun until it cost him his life. Hearing over the radio of the situation up at the observation post, Lieutenant John Brostrom, again, probably 24, 25 years old, from Hawaii. Dad had served. Dad was an aviator in the Gulf War. He had come to us over the middle of that deployment. We loved him. We used to give him a hard time. For those that have been in the Army, we know there's 2 types of Rangers. There's strong Rangers and there's smart Rangers. John was a strong Ranger. But tactically, he was sound. He was great. And when he heard what was going on up at the observation post, he wasted no time telling our company commander, Matt Meyer, hey, our men are getting hit up there. You got it here. Let me go. And Matt, having complete trust in John, said, go do what you got to do. John ran to our 2nd squad position for volunteers to make the assault up to the observation post to reinforce me and my fellow paratroopers. As he looked around, he asked for volunteers. And the first guy to raise his hand was Jason Hovader. Jason was 24. He was really the comedian of our platoon. He could do a spot-on impression of our battalion commander. So during re-enlistment ceremonies or any ceremony, they would bring him out there to make fun of our battalion commander because his impersonation was just great. He was the funniest guy. But Jason also taught me what courage was. You know, well, we're there, you're a bunch of infantry paratroopers. We're not talking about our fears or really even our hopes and dreams all that much. You still talk about that stuff. But Jason would talk about openly how afraid he was of dying, right? And to be truthful, we all are. Everyone is. But on that day, despite how afraid he was and the bullets falling like raindrops, when John Brostrom asked for volunteers, Jason was the first one to raise his hand. And they covered 100 to 150 meters of open ground, probably running right past enemy positions. They had to come reinforce the observation post. John and Jason would give their lives so that myself and the rest of our brothers could come home. Jason taught me what courage is. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the ability to move forward in the face of it. There were other guys, like Reed Grapes or Dylan Meyer, that would jump on the hoods of trucks to reload guns because they couldn't be done from the safety of the turret. And they're doing this as rounds are impacting all around them, smacking off the windshield, hitting the shields on the turrets because we know the enemy's going after our most heaviest weapons. And guys would do this repeatedly. When our tow truck was hit, our tow missile truck, a flaming missile was ejected through the air and landed in a fighting position about 50 yards away with 6 paratroopers in it. Everybody's getting ready to put as much distance between themselves and that missile, when one guy, Eric Phillips, decided it's better for one to risk their life than many. So he grabbed that flaming missile by himself and ran it out into the open. And he didn't just run it out thinking of his paratroopers. He also thought of, when I put this thing down, what happens if it cooks off? He had the clarity, as he's this primary target out there in the open, to think about which way I put this down. We had lost Jason and Jonathan up at the observation post. And there was a point in time where I was by myself. Everybody had either had to fall back to get more ammo and weren't able to make the assault up, or everybody was already had died. When they heard my call over the radio and they heard our company commander say, "Hey, Sergeant Pitts, there's no one to send. You're just gonna have to sit tight until we can get to you," which I understood. Those are some of the difficult decisions that we have to face in combat. Our company commander had a tough choice, one man or the entire team, and he's got to think about the mission. And I've never held that against him. But one of our youngest soldiers, Jacob Sones, who was not our greatest soldier back in garrison, so like the dress and ceremony type stuff, he was kind of the type of soldier that if we got off at, say, 5 o'clock, I think the MPs had him at 5:30. But with the same intensity that he approached his free time, he approached that day. When he heard my call over the radio and he could hear the enemy talking in the background over my voice, my whispers through the radio, he said, "That's Sergeant Pitts up there, we gotta go get him." And he and his squad leader moved to our first squad position where they met up with Mike Denton and Sean Samaru, and they assaulted their way into the observation post. They never even knew they were coming. All I could hear were the American voices, and they came in. Soane started to treat me. And at this point in the battle, we'd been fighting for probably about an hour or more. We're starting to run low on ammo, and we had to start searching our own casualties for ammunition. So Sean Samaru and Mike Denton, while Israel Garcia and Jacob Soanes are treating me and pulling security, Denton and Samaru went casualty by casualty, taking ammo off of them. Jason Hovader was Michael Denton's best friend. Mike Denton searched his best friend's body for ammo, told him he loved him, and turned around and re-entered the fight. Wasn't long after that we took RPGs again. I was wounded again, Soanes got wounded, Garcia was mortally wounded, so were Denton and Samaru. Everybody got wounded. Denton had taken shrapnel all up and down his backside. He had a perforated eardrum. He had taken a piece of shrapnel through his dominant hand and bone was sticking out. He was a saw gunner for us, so he had this automatic machine gun that he carried. And as the rest of us are sitting down trying to figure out what's going on, get up on comms and all that, Denton's the lone guy standing up pulling security. Bleeding all over the place, bone sticking out of his hand. He's switched to his non-dominant hand and has his machine gun propped up on his wounded arm, ready to engage the enemy and protect us. Eventually, medevac showed up, and more guys poured up to the observation post, despite the fact that at this point, we have taken 8 killed at the observation post. And almost everybody that passed through there had been wounded in some capacity or another. But still, guys from the post came up. Guys from our first platoon that made, a 3-hour drive in 45 minutes to come reinforce us, they started to show up. The medevacs started coming up the valley. They came against orders. They were instructed not to come yet because it was too hot, and they came in taking rounds in the belly of their birds coming into land. I watched one of them land right down in the middle of the vehicle patrol base where we were stationed, where we had the majority of our forces, thinking the whole time, okay, I'm gonna have to make it this 200 yards down there. I can't walk, they're gonna have to carry me. As we watch, we pop smoke to our east, and we're on the side of a hill, and I watch as this medevac helicopter flares and lands right on the side of the hill between us and the enemy. And not only did they land, those crew chiefs jumped off and bounded down the hill to come load me and my buddies and to get us out of there. We had Marines back at our forward operating base where our battalion was headquartered, operating artillery for us. We had Air Force overhead. I was treated by Navy nurses and every branch on my way back. But at the end of the day, we had over 25 wounded and we had 9 killed in action. Sergio Abad, Jonathan Ayers, Jason Bogar, Jonathan Brostrom, Israel Garcia, Jason Hovader, Matthew Phillips, Pruitt Rainey, and Gunnar Zwilling. It came at a high cost. But I learned that day what it means to wear the uniform. That it didn't matter whether I had done training exercises or those medevac crews knew my name or my guys, whether those Marines loading rounds out of the 155 777s to shoot in support of us, the Apaches, the Air Force that were risking their careers to drop danger close to help us out of our fight, and everybody along the way. I didn't have that appreciation beforehand. You know, anybody that served in the infantry, and certainly we know Marines, we like to beat our chests a little bit, right? You know, the best, we take the fight to the enemy, and there's everybody else. That's just not the truth. No. It takes all of us. It takes everybody doing their job. Because if the mechanics don't keep those birds up, they never come out and they never say, "I I'm never here today." The Navy corpsmen that fought and bled alongside us in our sister units that served, that every job is important. We are all equal, whether you served in peacetime or war, in combat or in support. Our service is equal. Now, what we did isn't necessarily the same, but you should take pride that you answered the call in a time of war, or no, or peace. That it's a privilege to know people like that. That happened back in 2009. I've had a number of years to unpack that, and I thought I had sorted through all that. And then last year, the withdrawal in Afghanistan and the giant garbage island fire that was, it brought a lot of emotions back. Thinking about, like, what were these losses for? Is this what my friends died for? They died for me. They died for us. Every single one of you. These are your sons, your daughters, your mothers, your fathers, your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, your friends. They paid the costs that, whether we know it or not, whether we accept it or not, we sign up for when we raise our right hand to defend our country. And this is worth defending. I saw people from all different backgrounds. Didn't matter the color of your skin, didn't even matter if you were born here. I served alongside people from El Salvador, Guatemala, Mexico, England, all sorts of other countries. Didn't matter what you believed in, didn't matter who you loved. All that mattered was that you cared about the person to your left and right more than you cared about yourself. And we did that. Your loved ones did that. So it's fitting that we're here today to actually commemorate the global war on terror after it's over, and fitting that the memorial itself is a combat cross. For those of you that aren't familiar, that's how we honor our dead in combat afterwards. We set a pair of boots out, inverted rifle, soldiers or service members' dog tags, and their helmet. And we each render our salute and say goodbye. And that this community will have an opportunity every time you drive by to look at that combat cross and think about the sacrifices. And to know that in the future, we still have young men and women who will raise their hand and fight and bleed for this country, and if necessary, give their lives. It's our responsibility to honor their sacrifices, and make sure they're not wasted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Staff Sergeant Pitts. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Mike Fisher. He's the Chief Officer of Readjustment Counseling Service, also known as the Vet Center Program. Mike leads an organization of 300 vet centers stretching from the U.S. Virgin Islands all the way out to the Pacific, American Samoa, and Guam, and points in between. What I would like to share with you all, and you have his bio on the back of your programs, you've got Ryan's bio in there as well, but a snapshot of the Chief Officer. Mr. Fisher in ensuring that his personnel have what they require in order to accomplish the mission they are charged with, has recently traveled to California, Nevada, Massachusetts, New Mexico, Hawaii, Texas, Alabama, and he joins us now, having just visited vet centers from Caribou, Maine, down to Rhode Island, and then he came back up. And next week, we're in Michigan. Following my detail in the central office in Washington, I witnessed firsthand the dedication and hard work that he puts in each and every day. The duty day that day stretched from 6 a.m. Mike was already in the office, and I think he left the office at 9:30 that night. That's not the exception, that's the norm. So were you to drive past I Street where our offices are there and look up at night, you're probably going to see the light on in his office, and it's not the folks that are taking the trash out. Mike is also an infantry squad leader, non-commissioned officer, combat vet of Operation Iraqi Freedom. And so it is a privilege for me to be able to present to you all, Mr. Mike Fisher.
Thanks, Rich, for that kind introduction. What Rich doesn't know is the reason why I'm at the office at 9 o'clock is because I don't have to go home and walk the dog. It's my wife's job, right? So anyway, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, veterans, service members, your families, distinguished guests, and all of those here to commemorate the dedication of the Global War on Terror Memorial Bridge. I'd also like to thank Ryan, Adjutant General of Massachusetts, Major General Gary Keefe, Massachusetts State Senator Bruce Tarr, State Representative Jamie Salito, Secretary of Veteran Services Sherry Poppy, and also representatives from Congressman Moulton's office. I also want to recognize all of the loved ones in this room who lost someone in defense of this cause, specifically our Gold Star families. Thank you, and I'm honored to be a part and among you today. Lastly, I'd like to recognize two veteran advocates who championed this tribute. Army veteran Rich Barbado and Director of Veteran Services at the Eastern Essex District Department, Karen Tyler. You know, someone once told me that every cause needs a zealot. Now, I know some people might think that's a negative thing, but I actually do not. In fact, I see that individual who is that unwavering force that keeps us moving forward, especially when we do not think we can. So thank you for that. When we look back at the history of the global war on terror, a term first coined 21 years ago after the attacks of September 11th, we recognize it has evolved. The strategies to deal with those seeking to sow panic, cause fear, or place lives, liberty, or security in danger may have changed, but the impact and effects to those who have borne the battle have not. It is one of the longest wars in U.S. history, one that began on American soil, yet was felt globally, one that sought to improve the lives of many, allowing forward movement and progress, but also one that disrupted our normal way of life. One that spans generations, one that costs some much and others all. And while it may not be at the forefront of everyone's mind today, the sacrifice, the burden, in defense of a cause greater than self is one many of us in this room still feel, experience, and bear the costs of. The global war on terror stands as a permanent symbol in our history and requires us to honor the legacy of those who defended it. This is a sacrifice Massachusetts knows all too well. But today, in this ceremonial dedication of this bridge, Essex and its surrounding counties, as well as the greater community, we have an opportunity to establish new meaning and make a public commitment to those who served, those who are still serving, and their families. You know, when I look back at my own decision to join the military, I wanted to be part of something bigger than myself, though I did not think I could have ever been truly prepared for the realities of war. You know, I think back to my first mission, Christmas Day, December 2004. That's when I experienced my first IED. It wasn't going to be the last one, and it wasn't the only thing that stuck with me in that deployment. In fact, when I came home in 2005, you know, in a medical hold unit, I was trying to figure out, did I fulfill my purpose, or could have I done anything else different? But also looking ahead to the future, I could not see one. I did not have a vision for what my life was going to be after this whole thing. Now, that's just my experience. I'm going to venture to say that others, they also might have a similar one, or maybe they're still thinking about that. But regardless of whether you deployed your MOS, whether you were inside or outside of the wire, in the air or on the ship, if you served during or in support of, we honor you and recognize your unique contributions to the cause. We also recognize that the experiences during this time, as well as the physical and emotional effects after, are unique to those who endure it. And this is something we actually see every day at our 300 vet centers across the country. Our dedicated counselors, outreach staff, support staff shoulder their share of the responsibility in assisting veterans and service members in their transition process. We actually have a couple of them here today in the mobile vet center outside, so if you please get a chance, take a look at that. They're supporting individuals through marriage challenges, substance use, guilt, anger, fear, hopelessness, and other symptoms. You know, as one Iraq veteran told us in his feedback that we received, he is finally working through years of pain. Veterans are also identifying a missed sense of trust, authentic connection and camaraderie, confusion regarding the past, and an inability to see a clear future state, a longing for a brotherhood and sisterhood that serves a higher calling and a greater purpose. Or maybe as Sebastian Junger, author of Tribe, puts it, fraternal and supportive in a way that resonates with human instinct. At vet centers, we actually borrow from that tribal belief that it is your community that sends you to war. It's also your community who should welcome you home to help find meaning and begin to transition back, to create a new sense of community, belonging, and purpose. For us at vet centers, that's creating that soft landing in a comfortable environment, while others who have been through it, to begin to establish that meaning or to identify new goals. You know, I'd also be remiss not to recognize and be thankful for another generation of veterans, our Vietnam veterans, who refused to be forgotten, who refused to be stigmatized, and insisted on creating a place where they could be at the center of their care, in an environment with those who share similar experiences, so they could begin to heal. It was actually because of that sacrifice from those Vietnam veterans that those who served after, to include post 9/11, did not have to bear the same burden when coming home, and could turn to the support of places like a vet center, as well as be honored and welcomed back into the broader community. It's actually why I'm here today. In fact, in 2005, when I was trying to make heads or tails of what I went through and struggling to see a clear future, it was a vet center counselor, a Vietnam veteran, who wouldn't let me shut my barracks room door until I talked to him. In fact, in my time when all I wanted to do was say no, he helped me say yes. Now, other veterans and service members like me are finding hope, purpose, and meaning again, and reintegrating back home. Another veteran who served in Afghanistan noted, "I have been able to distance myself from those feelings while still honoring the memories of my men and my peers." Others tell us frequently that the dedication of our teams and the trust they have when they walk into a vet center is unlike any other. And in some cases, they remark it has saved their life. Now, what we think that is, in addition to our dedicated teams, it's the feeling of safety in a judgment-free setting where individuals can begin to rebuild that sense of camaraderie through units of support. We recognize the power and strength in this camaraderie, both in and out of service, and challenge us all to find similar ways to create that connection and camaraderie in our own spheres of influence, like what we're doing right now. We also bear witness to the need for continued dedication and support to those who've lost a loved one in defense of this cause. I'm speaking about our Gold Star families. We must show our loyalty and compassion to the families of the fallen. This experience is unique, but no less important when honoring the legacy and cost of this cause. It's actually why we continue to provide those services at vet centers across the country. But it's not enough for the healing and camaraderie to transpire just only in our four walls. We cannot do it without the help of others. That's actually why we work with the community to find ways like this one, to honor service, commemorate sacrifice, and demonstrate a public commitment to welcoming home those who serve while helping them to find new meaning. We've learned from tribal nations that ceremonies after protection or offer protection in battle and cleansing upon return to help manage the physical and psychological damage caused by combat. Families and communities participate in ceremonies and to express support, to recognize sacrifice, and encourage the warrior's return to everyday life. This bridge dedication is just as symbolic. To connect to the past, to the future, to create new paths forward together as a community, and to memorialize in perpetuity the service and sacrifice of those who fought for our nation in defense of global terrorism. Now, I'd like to end my time today with saying again, it is your community that sends you to war. It is also your community's responsibility to welcome you home and to begin to give meaning to that experience, exactly like what we're doing today. Now, with all of that in mind, I ask that we share this message as widely as possible. To those still defending the war on terror, to those still living with the pain of losing a loved one, to those living with regret or more injury or still trying to make meaning of the past and seeing a vision for the future, do not shoulder this alone. We are here for you. Your community is here for you. Thank you, everyone, for your time and opportunity, and congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. At this time, we're going to present a series of roses. The first, I would invite the Ayub family to present a yellow rose in memory of all of our fallen from Afghanistan at the service member memorial located to my left to your right. At this time, I would like to invite the Renfro family to place a rose in memory of all of our fallen from Iraq and Syria. Thank you, Ayub and Renfro families. I would now like to invite the Ayub family, the Renfro family, Staff Sergeant Pitts, General Keefe, Mr. Fisher, Secretary Poppy, Senator Tarr, Rep. Belcedo, former Rep. Brad Hill, to join me up here to unveil the bridge sign. Just going to ask everybody just to shift over here. We're going to unveil the bronze plaque, which will be affixed to the apex of the bridge. It's still being fabricated, but after this, following this, if you would like to check out the bridge, everything else is up at this time. For those of you that can't see it, it says dedicated to the service members of the United States Armed Forces who stepped forward and served in post 9/11 anti-terrorism operations. This bridge honors the service made by these men and women and their loved ones, and most especially to those who made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of this great nation. And at the bottom, a quote, "To serve this great country of ours with honor is a privilege." Sergeant Renfro said that to me when we were sitting in Kuwait watching Scuds come towards us. He was playing an acoustic guitar at the time and was calming everybody down because one had made it through the Patriot Battery, I think a week prior, and it impacted, so everybody was a little nervous, and understandably so, but he put everybody at ease. Folks, what I'll leave you with is that's the gift of putting the uniform on, that you're able to serve with folks that are of the highest caliber, that are the best our nation produces. That is the line, our military lineage as Americans, is that we are fortunate to have these folks that step forward, that raise their right hand, not knowing what is going to happen in the course of their service, and you have the honor of working alongside of folks that are just of the highest caliber. And again, out of 775 folks, when remembered Sergeant Renfro, he was the best of us, and he was. He is the sole reason why I have been doing what I'm doing and trying to help veterans since 2013. Folks, thank you all for being here. This concludes our ceremony. Thank you so very much.